Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours Saturday. If you're joining us on YouTube and want to find out more about what we do, head on over to officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion around media production, and our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. Today, it's a whole second hour of Q&A. So fire up Makana, get those questions into us, vote the others up and down. You can live chat with the other producers. If you're not in Makana, just go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. The easiest way to get those questions into us, nothing to log into, and it's open 24/7. That's askofficehours.global. Mitch, let's hop into the first question.
All right, hopping with Paul Wallace in Starling Plaza, Texas. What's the best stand for a super lightweight microphone such as the Tula?
Sorry, Mitchell?
The Tula is that little, it looks like a shaver, that Russian microphone. It is lightweight. I would go with because it's a stylized microphone, I'd go with a stylized mic stand. I can't give you an exact model, but there are plenty of lightweight ones out there that don't have those super heavy bases.
Alex?
It depends. Depends on where you're going to put it. Are you going to travel with it? Or are you going to, so the question is, are you traveling with it? Are you going to, if you're at home, I will highly recommend not a stand, but really get an arm. Get a low-profile arm. Elgato makes an LP. That's the low-profile one. I would not use a stand if I was going to use it every day at home. Like I think stands are something that you use for a temporary position. Mic arms are what you want to use, and I would recommend against overhanging mic arms in general. We really find that low-profile ones. I use a Ultima 2 from OC White. It's really overpriced. It's not overpriced. It's expensive. It's worth every penny that I paid for it. But you can also get one that's a little less flexible, but still great, is the Elgato LP. I would look at that. Otherwise, there's lots of little stands. You got to decide whether you're traveling with it. Again, like Mitch, I wouldn't get something that's got a heavy base because it takes a lot to travel with it. So you can get little ones that will open up. And there's lots and lots of those on Amazon that will do. You want to think about how high you need to put it. So does it need to sit up here? So look at what it's going to need to stand on and how low it might need to get to. But that's the balance that you have there. One of the things that the final thing I would say is that the one that I'm really looking at that I want to send out with our kits is the new Rode stand. I don't think it's shipping yet. But the pictures that they have on their site and on Amazon look amazing. So that one looks like the best one that I've seen, but I don't know until I test it.
Courtney? Can't hear you, Courtney.
Sorry. You look at that Tula mic, and it has, it has its own little stand built into it, just to put it on a desk that folds down.
Horrible.
Yes, I'm sure it would conduct every single
it'd be too far away.
Noise, and would be too far away. So I suggest, one of these cheap boom arms if you're going to be in a permanent situation, and maybe something lighter like a regular Atlas desk stand. But I think it does. It may have a 3/8" thread or a 1/4" thread on it, which is unusual, instead of a 5/8 or a 3/8". So check. You may need some adapters to go to a conventional microphone stand, whether you choose a little Atlas desk stand or one of those boom arms to go in from underneath or hanging off your desk.
It looks like it does come with a mic stand adapter to get you over to that other side. Mitch?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the adapter, because my AKG has a in-thread adapter to adapt it to a different size thread, which we're used to using over here. The other thing is, be careful if you're buying a cheap boom that has springs in it. Sometimes those springs, unless you do something to isolate, I think Courtney has a solution for that. You can hear it twanging from the springs when you're moving that mic stand around.
Craig?
Forgot to come off mute. Just another thought on the Elgato. If you have a boom, so I used to have a microphone hanging down, and I found that it was just getting into the way of my monitors too much. And so the boom from Elgato was the low profile one, was just perfect, above keyboards and mice, but doesn't interfere with any monitors.
Courtney, wrap us up.
I was just going to say, handle the spring noise. I use this neoprene foam weather stripping that I just wedge between the springs in the arm, and it stops the ringing that you would hear when I do that.
Next question.
Next question coming into us from Grant Whitehead in Adelaide, Australia. Where in live online events do you see the best use case for Vision Pro?
Jeffrey?
Oh, there's many different places for the online events that would work, especially when it comes to doing like a TD through a Zoom or anything like that. I can't wait to see what would happen with that. But the bigger thing is I can't wait to see when NDI will actually start to come from the Vision Pro. Not as much for the online events, but for the live events, I'd love to see have somebody standing in the front row of a concert wearing a Vision Pro, simply for the fact of sending NDI signal back to the production truck, and then you get that first-person look of an event.
Alex?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to see someone's headset for very long, because it's very hard for people. I mean, if we look at what people do with their phones, their head will be worse because they're just not conscious to, our eyes correct for our head movement, but the cameras will not. And so you'll see this kind of constant jittering. I think that'll be problematic. I do think that there's a real, it could change a lot of things about how we do addresses to people and so on and so forth. I watched the Alicia Keys. I don't know if anyone's seen it yet, but there's an Alicia Keys test in Apple Music that is, they have a studio that is kind of here, and she's got like a piano and some people over here, and they put these, what look like, these are stereo like stands that I think they made them try to look like they're speakers, but they actually have what looks to be like the Canon R5s in them, or something like it. And so it's 4-camera shoot, and she kind of walks from one to the next, and it's pretty slow, and you just kind of go from one thing to the next. But there are moments when she's looking at the camera that are really compelling. The rest of it is kind of okay. So they spent a lot of money on it, I'm sure. But I felt like they, I know that they're trying hard. They just overproduced it, and so. But I think that there was a couple moments there where I saw, oh, this is going to be really cool. And I think that people are underplaying. I think the challenge we're going to have with concerts or a lot of events is that we'll underplay the fact that you can just look at someone as if they're there, like they're the only ones in the room, like you're playing to them. And I think that it's a mistake to try to just treat them like I'm not going to pay attention to you. And I've done this for a long time, and I just feel like that's when you really feel like you're somewhere. So I think that I think changing the position of the person is probably not great. You want to build the room around the idea that the person could sit somewhere comfortably and be there. And so I think that those are the things that I think that we want to kind of think about. But I think that as events, the other thing is interactively giving you, we'll see a lot of dorky things happen. Like there's going to be a lot of people that want to take the real world event and try to make it feel like you're there. That's just, that's what everybody does. Like everybody, you're like, let's make it look just like it was in the real world, and we'll put it here. No one's going to like that because they compare it to the real world, and it's not going to be as good. But we want to take advantage of what the interactive tools are. I played with this. There's an app called Jig, and I opened up a jet engine and just started pulling things apart, and I saw how a stint goes into a you could rotate it around. You just hold it like this and rotate it and move it around. Finding ways to use those kinds of tools without worrying about making it look like an auditorium or look like a stadium or look like anything else, I think is going to be really compelling. So, it's going to be, I think it will go somewhere. I think that the first pass of this will be a whole bunch of dumb ideas that no one will ever use more than 2 or 3 years out, because it'll be event producers trying to do things that this is what we saw with Meta. So a bunch of event producers will come in and they'll want to say, well, I want to make it look like a stage. We do stages because that's all we could do. Like, why are we cutting the end of the pot roast off just for that? So, stages are horrible. And so we should just get rid of them and go on to something that really makes a difference.
Guy?
All right, so I feel like the cheap friend that couldn't get the Vision Pro. So I got a Meta Quest at Costco last week. And so I loaded up this app, and I just wanted to let you guys kind of see what my PC looks like running vMix in the other room. So if I slide the glasses on, I can actually cut. So I can select sources. And if I wanted to pull up a and cut that. I can cut it in. If I want to adjust my audio, if I want to stream, I can stream. But just this thing looks like it's 10
mouse
feet
to point, or using your eyes to point at stuff?
No, I'm using these things. So this thing's $499. Just to give you guys, some clarity here for those of you that just want to play in this world, for $499, you're doing some of the things that you can do with the Apple Vision Pro. It's cool seeing CJ launch Mix Effect and do some super sources and launch DaVinci Resolve, and that was a pleasure to see these guys open them up and show us what it's capable of. And I'm excited to get one. But at the $4,000 mark, I was just having a hard time justifying, because I can buy the Canon R5, which I want, with the dual fisheyes, and I could start producing content for the Meta Quest, because there was some great videos from CES 2024 that were shot with that Canon R5 with the dual fisheye. And when I saw it in the Meta Quest, I was blown away. That 8K RAW, I mean, because if you take it through DaVinci Resolve and you grade it, it looks like, when they were spinning these cars around, it looked like the car was coming at you as it spun around. I mean, I think that's what they were using for the Alicia Keys shoot too. And I have one I'm going to be shooting with over the next couple of weeks. And so it's the great package. We also have to remember that when we look at where Apple's going with this, is that they that they bought NextVR. So there's obviously a lot of thought process around the dual 180. But I will say that I have a Quest 2 that I paid $250 for, and I'm not going to stop using it, because I don't think that you can really do exercise stuff in the Apple headset. I think it's too fragile. Yeah, I mean, there's 20 million units of the Meta Quest. It was Oculus, and Oculus was making a big run, and they came in. Meta saw the potential and snatched them right up, because it's a competition now. It's as media producers, it's really great for us, because both of them both of them have competition. So there's going to be a lot of media that wants to get produced for both.
Courtney?
I wondered if Alex maybe has one too. If the Insta360 has an app that will run that lets you, the regular, not the 360 link, but the regular 360 camera that lets you unfold it and play it back in the Meta Quest and look around in all directions.
It's not yet, and it's really unfortunate. I have hundreds of Theta photos, and they're not seen as a valid file format right now. I mean, they show up, but they just show up as a rectilinear, 16 by or 2 by 1 or whatever. But they're not. I have lots of them, and I really wanted them to pop up because they'll look really cool. So I put those up. I was fortunate enough that I got into panoramas on the phone from the day it started working. And so I've got like 600 panoramas from all over the world of my life, which I love. So last night, I think I spent an hour and a half just looking at these panoramas. So the panoramas from the phone work, but the spherical doesn't work yet, or doesn't. Yeah, and I think it's yet. I think I'm sure that they'll find some way to support that. But right now,
with the RS, you actually have two sensors, so it's actually creating two videos. To stitch those together would be kind of hard. Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's with the Theta is giving you a full image that could just be used, and it's just not recognizing 360 video or 360 stills right now. So it's doing the panorama, but not a 360 environment.
Craig?
Yeah, just a quick note that if you're doing a spatial video, doing it with iPhone 15, you get the more of a landscape, where if you do it with the Vision Pro, you get a square.
I didn't find it very compelling. I'll try some more. I'll try some more with my phone. It felt a little soft, but I shot some with my phone. And
yeah, I even tried, because you had mentioned, Alex, at one point that snow was going to be one of the things that would look really cool. And so we had a snowstorm the other week, and I was like, I'm going to get ready for the Vision. And I was like, meh. So, Nigel?
Yeah, I think if I was looking for something that was an event, I would look for something that was fairly clearly time-bound, that you can do something you couldn't do otherwise. So I saw a video, someone shared a video with me of a Formula One race where someone's watching the TV production up here, and then in front of them is I think it was the Yas Marina circuit with the cars on it. Because one of the things for us Formula One fans is they can only really show you what they're focusing on. And sometimes there's another race, and being able to look down the race or even walk round the track to see what's happening from a different view, I think would be really interesting. Now, I think I'd probably do that once or twice, but mostly what I'd do is I would move between the two. So I think I would look for time-bound events where some additional data that would be confusing on the television could augment the experience.
Mitchell?
I was sitting in after hours when there was a multitude of Vision Pros being displayed, and a number of things struck me. The first was that I wasn't one of them that was using it, so I felt kind of like left out. And the other part was I think sometimes technology, which is great, and it certainly is a great piece of technology, gets used in ways that you never anticipated. And I think people are going to respond to the idea that they can do a live event and not bother about combing their hair or washing up because their avatar does a pretty good job. And just to let you know, I'm not a total Luddite. I have my Cinema 4D virtual glasses that work with my iPhone 6.
I will say that, I mean, I may jump into Mac Break. I tried to jump in this morning with my avatar. I had some trouble getting the audio to work and getting some other things to work, and I tried to do that. I don't think I will use that avatar more than I have to. Like, I think that it's not something like, oh, this is great, I don't have to do my hair. I think, and again, I have a pretty good setup, so maybe it's a little different for someone who's got, who's been coming in over their cell phone for Zoom calls, but I do not like it. Like I have to say that I do not like. There's a lot of things about the Vision Pro that are pretty amazing. The avatar is not one of them. I want to respect the incredible work that team put into what it did. It is a very I think it's actually really amazing to make it that easy to capture a face and do all those things. I know that was an incredible amount of work, so I want to respect that, but I don't like what comes out of it, and I don't want to look like that for very long. And so I don't think that, I think that there's, it's beta. And so maybe it'll get better. But in the early days, I could see I got on a call with a producer yesterday with one of our producers with it. And she was like, that's super weird. But I was in the Pro and I didn't want to take it off. So that's where it's useful. Is because I wanted to talk about some of the things that I was doing. I was testing Mokana inside of it, and I was testing, looking at this, and I was doing all these other things. And so we were discussing things that were in the Vision, but I did not think that I would never want to present that way. So I don't think that that's probably a valid presenter solution.
Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael. Douglas asks, do you think the Vision Pro or future cost-reduced version could be useful for health and rehab applications, or would Xreal or similar AR goggles be more cost-effective choices?
Jeffrey?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's been happening for many years, ever since the first Quest came out. It's called virtual reality exposure therapy, and many different ways to do it. The biggest thing is with PTSD. What they do is they put people into environments to calm them down, putting in binaural sounds. So they put on their headphones, and then they get into a more relaxed state for that. For other types of therapy, like hooking on like an electrode to knees or elbows or anything like that, and wearing a suit to give you a haptic feel. That's if down the road, the future, if somebody's got to be developing on that easily. As for the other ones, the AR goggles, anything that's more glasses related, I looked at about 4 or 5 different AR glasses at CES this year, and most of them were really focusing on putting a desktop in front of your eyes. They weren't thinking about changing the view so you'd see like a landscape or anything like that. It just focused on business stuff. So I'd say that glasses like that will most likely focus on keeping you on the desktop, whereas something like a MetaQuest or a Vision Pro will give you that full VR environment and the gaming environment and everything like that. That will give you those helpful apps out there and accessories that will come down the line.
Nigel?
Yeah, so I have some of the Xreal Air. And by the way, without the beam, they are not really a lot of use other than just to give you, that's right, to give you a large screen. I don't think I would exercise in them. I don't think that makes a logical use. I think the interaction is just not good enough. It is really good for, as it was said, for extending your desktop, for watching a movie, for being a bit more absorbed in something in a room. I don't particularly like the Superbowl, but we were watching the Super Bowl, so I watched it on the Xreal Air just to have a different experience and play with it and stuff. And so that was good for me. And I will tell you that I think $4,000 for me is too high a price at the moment to get into the Vision. But I have booked a demo experience next week in an Apple store because I want to have the experience. I want to see what it's like. And that feels like a poor man's way to get into the conversation.
Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, they've been using virtual reality glasses to treat people with acrophobia, fear of heights, for many years now. So it could be used for that, although it would be, as Nigel said, a very expensive option because you don't need the augmented reality, I guess, to do that with. And maybe they could come up with an app that, you paint a stripe on the floor and it keeps the stripe. You see the stripe, but then it has like a 30-story drop off on either side of it. You have to walk along the stripe. But, they've been doing that for many years. It's kind of an expensive solution. As far as a medical device, maybe our Medicare dollars will go to work there and buy them for all the rehab centers.
Alex?
Yeah, for medical, there's a lot of things that are really expensive when you walk into I don't think that the $4,000 would matter to a hospital if it's more comfortable and more effective. I think the big problem will be fitting it, trying to fit it to random people and everything else. It's really kind of a more personal device. I also think that they're probably going to go back and revisit the headset, the way it's attached to your head. I don't think that the 2-strap or the 1-strap really work. I think that they worked hard to not do exactly what Meta did, I guess, to make it not look that way. But you really need a strap across the crown. You need a strap across the front to pull it up because it's leaning forward. The headset is not too heavy. It's just that the strap system is not effectively built. And so I think that those are the things that, from a rehabilitation perspective, like for instance, the MetaQuest, I exercise in the MetaQuest almost every day. So I do Supernatural almost every single day as kind of like a little break, about 20, 30 minutes. And I am, I have to, I do it when I don't have to have any more meetings because it's a good hard workout, And so I think that I would never do that in this headset. It's got the magnetic piece that holds onto it comes, will joggle off really quickly. It's not an active thing, but the MetaQuest is nothing. Like you just do it. And you definitely feel the step down. I put the MetaQuest on for the first time after I put the headset on. You feel the step down in resolution. I'm using the 2, which is a little lower resolution than the 3. I'm going to get a Pro. Colleen's going to lend me a Pro. And so to see what that looks like. But I do think that for a lot of movement, I don't think it's going to work. I just don't think that's going to be what this headset does. It's not this mission.
Guy?
Yeah, I first saw my grandkids playing with the MetaQuest 2. We got one for Christmas, and watching them zoom around in our living room, I was like, good thing they're getting some exercise, So the possibility is definitely there. It reminds me of a friend back in the 90s when we were producing DVDs. He was saying the same thing to his clients as they exited. And so it was taking up 5-10 minutes, but it was always the same thing. So we made a DVD with some chapters, and they were able to say, okay, just for this patient, do chapter 4 as they exit. And so they just played out a video. So same thing with the MetaQuest. I could imagine something more of a VR AR experience where you're actually able to see the move, the stretch that they're asking you to do. Because some of these things are really realistic. The MetaQuest 3 has higher resolution and a better chip, so I went ahead and bought it, and the difference is astounding because it's also got color cameras. So when you put on the 3, you can see everything around you in color. I don't know if you knew that, Alex, but the environment, like you could read your phone, you could enter in passwords and whatnot. But the 8K videos that I was seeing that were of like Bali and some of these foreign white sandy beaches, I mean, it felt like you're there. Like your mind just goes, whoa, how did I get here? So it's pretty impressive for $499, which you can get. I mean, I really want to get the Apple Vision, but man, for a tenth of the price, or not a tenth, but like an eighth of the price, it's a good starting point to get there and get the experience.
Nigel?
I would like to make a prediction. I have just seen somebody driving their Tesla on autopilot using the Vision Pro headset. How long is it before we get our first news story that someone had an accident, that people start to say ban it? I think we've got a whole next generation of wave of stories like that really have been avoided with every previous device that are now relevant because of the way this device is working. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch that.
They did get stopped by a cop.
Sorry?
In that video. In that video, they did get stopped.
This ignores the person who is eating a McDonald's hamburger and talking on their cell phone at the same time and gets into an accident. We don't notice that because everyone's doing it.
Radio hams for years have been able to use their radio ham devices with a push-to-talk button, and there haven't been accidents, but I'm not allowed to use a phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
Paul Wallace from Starlink Plaza, Texas. Password or passkey?
Samuel?
Yeah, well, I think that there's some applications for passkeys, like what you put in, like USB dongle that you put in, and then like the YubiKey has ones that you can scan your fingerprint on it. But for most people, I think passwords with a good password manager is the best solution. What I would probably look at if I was gonna get a new one is Bitwarden. It's they have an open source version that you can host yourself, or you can use their service. And the advantage with this is that instead of like a closed system, then there's a lot of people like developers that have checked the code and test it. So it's not only internal in the company that checks it. So I would look at Bitwarden.
Alex?
And if you're referring to passkey, the new technology that both Apple and Google and eventually Microsoft is going to support, it's the future. Like in 10 years, you'll never type something in. And so we're seeing it pop up in a couple of different places. Apple, of course, uses it. B&H is now using it. So if you go to B&H and you want to order something, it'll pop up and you can use it. So what happens is you see a QR code on your screen. You open up your phone and it actually says, do you want to open this? And you hit it. And it actually does biometrics on it. And the ability to lock it down so that you actually have someone, who someone is, and they are trustworthy, is going to change the internet. Because right now it's just trash because people have can log in lots and lots of different ways. And so I think that this is going to fix a lot of those things. A lot of people aren't going to like it, because it's going to, right now it's all an option. But you'll see people start to tighten this solution up over the next 3 to 5 years, where they won't let you in if you're not using passkey, because that means that you can only be one person, And so that's going to be, that's going to change a lot of things that aren't working on the internet. It'll make a lot of people upset as well, but it's the future.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, because the big thing right now is they're trying to avoid what's called SIM swapping, and that's basically where somebody that has enough of your information calls into the phone company and says, I lost my phone. Can you get me a new SIM card? Can you get me a new phone right now? And then all of a sudden they take over your phone. Then they have the ability to take over all your two-factor authentication if you do phone authentication. So the passwords, we're evolving in our password needs. So having a third party is one option, but we constantly trying to figure out the next step that hackers are going to take over your system. So that's an important part.
Yeah, the next conversation to have after this is privacy. So now that you can't be multiple people and you can't do other things, like the tracking people become more sensitive to companies tracking them when they can't, push them away. Like you can't say, oh, I don't want to give you my whatever, because it's always going to be you. And so if those companies pull that in, then the next step they're going to say is, well, I don't want you to track anything. And so you can see Apple doing this thing where they're tightening the company's ability to track. That is totally related to tightening passkey, because the two of them, as you tighten passkey, people become more sensitive to being tracked. And so you're seeing these two things getting, Apple's balancing both of those as they start to work, and and Microsoft are supporting it as well. And because of that, you're going to see it slowly take over.
Mitchell?
Since we've been talking a lot about the Vision Pro, how do you protect your avatar? Does it have some type of recognition system when you use those?
Optic ID. It scans your iris when you put it on. So even when, I tried to have my wife use it last night, she's like, how do I type in a passcode? And I was like, oh.
There's a guess mode. Yeah, you can put a guest mode on, or you can put multiple people on. So then when it sees their iris, so it's in people inside of the thing, you can go in there, and so you can set up multiple people to use the headset. I'm going to do that with my kids today. I didn't do it yesterday because they were all doing things, but so that they can put it on, and then it will do all the same setup for them to make it work. I don't know how much I want to do that because I don't know how much I want to share. But we're going to try to be a good father.
More light shields are in our future.
Yeah, and what is nice is that because this piece pops off, they can have their own heads, their own fitting. And so I don't know how that's going to work, but I know that I understood now why it pops off easily is because they can have they can get their own fitting, so they can just pull mine off and put theirs on. And that means that it's also nicer. It doesn't get grungy, with somebody else using it. It might get grungy with you using it, but it doesn't get grungy with somebody else using it. They have their own little personal connection to it, and it'll fit them better. So those are things that's kind of an interesting thing that they're kind of putting together.
Next question.
And it's coming in from Guy Cochran, who is right here on our panel, and he's from Seattle. Last night, I found 3 AJA Key Pro units at $50 each on Facebook Marketplace, old gear from a church. I bought them. What's a good modern-day use for these?
Rich?
I think the world of 1080 has not gone away. So, there's a lot of gear poking around out there that does 1080 playback. So I would say that's an excellent buy. I mean, I still have my Pix 240, and I find multitude of ways to be able to use that. I think it's going to be a long time for 4K to catch on for those type of playback devices.
Alex?
I used to own 8 of these, what you bought, and I paid a lot of money for them, a lot more than $50. I will say that the Pix 240 still sells for $2,500 on eBay, and the Key Pros do not, and there's a reason for that. I think that I would just be very careful with them. They are, I have so much scar tissue from the Key Pros that I shudder every time I look at them. Like every time I look at a Key Pro, I'm just like, oh, there's so many. I just get angry. Yeah, no, don't do that to me. That's not. Oh, and is that the newer one with the little memory cards in them? Is it the big memory? Oh, it's got the big ones on the front. So a couple things about
it's the older original Key Pros. So just
a couple
to give you nightmares, Alex, here you go.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I when it came out, it was revolutionary. It's just that admittedly, sound devices and then a whole bunch of other people came out with recorders. And, the problem, the HyperDeck didn't exist when the Key Pro came out, I don't think. So the Key Pro was the thing that we all bought. The problem with the Key Pros specifically is if for some reason someone ejects that memory card before they've closed it, everything's gone. Like it's all there, but you can't get to it. And it was like, and it was a lot of work to try to recover them. And we had enough failures. And then the fact that all of those memory systems are really expensive, like what really killed our interest in it is we could just go buy SSDs at Best Buy and use them for a show, or we could order something that was 8 times the cost, and wait 2 days for it to show up. You use the audio inputs, but the audio inputs would just, if you overdrive the inputs on those Key Pros, the noise that goes into it, they were really cheap, they're really, really cheap audio inputs on the back, the preamps.
That's what I was curious about, because
they're really cheap.
That's what I was trying to figure out if I could use them when I looked at the back, because, they've got a ton of I/O. Yeah. I have a modern day HyperDeck Pro. It's like $2,000, but it does not have all of this. It does not have, analog audio in and out.
Ship them. Here's the deal: you just have to make sure that you're really safe. You have to do true broadcast levels on those Key Pros. You cannot do what we do for streams, where we just push it right up to -3 or whatever, and let it bounce a little bit. You cannot over modulate those things. It'll just rip apart, in a horrible sounding way when it goes into those, if it over modulates. And so anyway, the overmodulation, the loss of data, the expense of the storage, and then just the quirkiness of just how you set it up. We found that we moved to HyperDecks, and then we never really, we did get then we bought the 4K ones because we needed 4K, and that was the ones that did it. And it, and they had audio inputs and so on and so forth. And so we did go up to those, but, the 4Ks were a little bit better than those ones, but still frustrating, and again, the proprietary memory, if you're using it in a small environment, you're trying to just embed stuff into it, it's not as good. I mean, if I was going to pick between that and and a Pix 240, I'll use a Pix 240 every single day. But the Pix 240 is still selling at $2,500 10 years after it was sold. So because none of us want to give them up. Like all of us are still using our Pix 240s and no one wants to sell them. So
yeah, these things, I'm seeing them go for about $150 on eBay. So it's still a good buy for what I think I'll wind up using them for audio embedders. So XLR to SDI audio embedding
is careful with that.
One use.
That's exactly the problem. Like, be careful. That's what we used to use them for, and that's what they bite us for, because if you get any overmodulation, it sounds horrible. With the Pix 240s, you would just slam it, and it has limiters built in. It would just go, yeah, sure, no problem. And so but be super careful with those if you're using them as embedders, because of that. It is nice. You can embed things into it, and that's what we used them for. It's exactly what we used them for, and they bit us a lot, for doing that. And so just be super careful of your audio levels.
Mitchell? Yeah, and the other thing is, way back in the day, this was revolutionary to see an interface like this back in 2009, where you could go in here and you can start and stop, and you have transport control and the ability to select. You
can gang them too. There's programs that will let. Sure. And what's great about the ganging is you can accidentally delete everything all at one time from all 9 of your ISOs. Not that I ever had a person in a truck do that for me. It was so great. And you know what saved me is that I had a backup on a Pix 240. Like at least I had the program, that I was recording, because he deleted all the data in all of them with that, because it wasn't like he hit delete. It's like if it got out of whack and it, again, they're quirky. I think that for what you're using it for $50, it's a great deal. but just know that that product has a lot of sharp edges and it's quirky. And if you do anything, you start thinking, as soon as you relax and let your guard down with that product, it's gonna cut you. So just know that that's what you're sitting against. And I know that so many people in our industry were like, oh, we'll use Keypro. It was just a really hard time that time when I used it. So the time, and when I say that time, it's like 5 years of me using those and using them on every event, and it was just
first introduced in 2009, so they're 15 years old. I can't believe that ProRes 1080p 30. It still is a standard, so it's still a usable device. I was just putting up Companion, and I put all the buttons into Stream Deck, and I was hitting play, record, stop, start, rewind. It's pretty cool for.
And I probably bought the first 8. I probably bought eight out of the first 1,000. We bought them right when they came out. And we used them again for years, at least 5 years, until we moved to HyperDecks.
Mitchell,
what would it be like to use them just to stick in a rack somewhere to be playing back a bumper over and over and over again? Would
that would totally appropriate? But you could use PlayAB for that. You could use PlayAB would do the same thing and same quality, to be honest. So. But you could use them that way for $50 and just have something that's a piece of hardware that you're not tempted to use for any other thing. And I do think that for embedding it could be fine. It just be super careful. The preamps are bad, the recording is quirky, and the storage is expensive.
Just a reminder, the show is driven by your questions. So if you've got questions, go ahead and fire at Makana, get those into us. Also, if you're not in Makana, just go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, and that is the easiest way to get those questions into us. But let's keep rolling. Mitch, next question.
Rolling along with Sam Reed in Maine. And Sam asks, do-it-yourself art house movie theater, a wide variety of sources to get the best from a laser projector in near complete darkness. I'm not sure the best direction to go in building LUTs and LUTbox versus a proc amp controls on a Teranex AV.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, you can decide how much control you want to make that actually happen. So, how much do you want to paint that out? The traditional thing to paint that would probably be something like if you have the money, is going to be some version of an FS. So what we typically use to paint these things are not the LUT boxes, but really, and not the Teranex AVs. The Teranex AV doesn't have enough control. So what you want is color front on an FS HDR FS4. You're going to be able to now tweak all the colors to do that. It's an expensive box. It's going to cost you, I think, $8,000 or something like that. So a LUT box might work for you. But if you're really talking about, I want an appliance that video goes in and video goes out, and I'm going to have total control over the color, then what you're looking for is an AJA. I just talked about how I didn't like the AJA, an AJA product, but even-handed here. I would say that what you're looking for is an FS. I would use an FS HDR. We've got a bunch of them in what we're doing, but an FS4, FS2, those types of things. But what you're looking for is to make sure it comes with ColorFront. ColorFront is going to give you all the color controls that you need to do that, and then you're going to want to add something like ScopeBox, so that what you have is you get these files and you can take a look at them to make sure that they work.
Courtney?
Yeah, what Alex has said, but I don't know about a do-it-yourself art house movie theater. If you're going to be exhibiting these things publicly, you might want to make sure that it's DCI compliant if you're going to get something from a traditional theatrical rental house that comes in a DCI package. There is a website, and I don't know what form of laser projector you're talking about, but it does have the DCI compliant equipment list here at I think it's DCImovies.com. And it has a whole list of equipment projectors that are, and even some direct view screens now that are compliant with the DCI distribution format on disk. So if you're getting those type of packages, which do involve encryption and decryption, sometimes in the projector, make sure that your projection equipment is compatible with DCI. Otherwise, it'll just give you a black screen.
Well, I think all the DCIs are in the projector. Like I don't think that there's an external
inside the projector. Right?
Yeah, so you have to buy a projector like a Barco or a Christie are going to have the DCIs built into them so that you can load them in. But almost all of those projectors also have SDI and HDMI inputs, so that you can put other things through the screen.
Right, but if you are going to, like I say, if you are going to want to project some DCIs that come from legitimate distributors, and you're not going to be Pirate House. Then,
no, but I think that art houses, but if it's an art house and they're buying older films, they're not buying the new films, they won't need DCI. You can get those because you're just licensing the ability to play it off of a DVD, or a Blu-ray. So I think that if you're an art house and you're doing those things, but I do agree with you that if you have the money to get a projector that has a DCP, you're gonna. It means that you could play anything. But those projectors, I think the entry level projector for that is like $60,000.
But also be aware that some of the projectors have HDCP enabled. So if you're playing off a Blu-ray over HDMI, you may not be able to do it.
Most of them can.
Some can. Or you can strip it off, but we did have that problem. We tried to project some on a good projector that had was DCI enabled, so it had HDMI
DCI or DCP.
DCI, and it was a professional theater,
right.
And we fed it a Blu-ray and we had to jump through and strip off HDCP because the projector.
Oh, it doesn't have HDCP because it's not doing the HDCP.
Right, and so the Blu-ray shuts it off before it gets to the projector. So
that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Mitch?
Yeah, I've peeked into a few projection booths, and I noticed they had a Dolby Cinema processor in a rack mount in front of the projector. Does that sort of deal with all these different formats?
No, I think the Dolby Cinema processor is for the audio. That's to convert the Atmos to cinema, and that's a whole. I'm assuming that an art house is not trying to do that, but that's a whole nother can of worms to open up.
Next question.
Michael Marsh from San Anselmo, California. I've got a 2-minute Resolve edit which suddenly won't play in real time. It's UHD log footage, single layer on an M1 Mac. I've restarted and have plenty of cache space. What happened and how can I fix it?
Guy?
I'll take a stab at this and say that it might have gotten corrupted and try selecting all, copy, make a new timeline and paste it in there and give that a shot.
Alex?
Yeah, I would wonder if you added any filters. So did you degrain it? Did you do anything else that, any other, any filters that you might have added would definitely drop it. I would, this is also why I save a lot of versions. So I pretty much save every day or every time I make major edits. So I'm just constantly saving so that I can go back to the file because those project files are very small. So I save often on a given day that I'm working, I may save 8 or 10 versions of something. Anytime I think of it as like climbing up a cliff. How far am I willing to drop? How far am I willing? So I'll put another peg in there. And so every time I do something major in a project, I'll tend to save the last version, and then I do the major thing, and then I move on again. And so that makes it easier to go back. It doesn't help you right now, but I'm going to guess that you have some kind of filter or processing in there that you added. So I would, unfortunately, I would probably strip it back and put everything. I would know what you did, and go back and put it together. But since it's only 2 minutes, I would start from the start again. If I had too much trouble with it for a 2-minute edit, I'd probably start rebuilding it if it wasn't playing back correctly. And I've done that with 20-minute edits where I just rebuilt the whole thing. You'll rebuild it, it'll take you an hour. Like for 2 minutes, it'll take you an hour. It'll take you more time to figure out what's going on here. And then you start to make sure that you can keep on playing back and see what you add that has it not be that way. But I would, it's going to take you an hour to do that because 2 minutes is, I don't know what you have in there, but what took you a long time was to figure it out, not to do it. So if you already have a reference point, the ability to rebuild it will be generally pretty quick, in my opinion, not knowing exactly what you put there. But I think I would take a look at that.
Next question.
Juan C. Robles from Mexico City, Mexico. Is Xcode available on the Vision Pro?
Alex?
You can develop for Vision Pro with Xcode. I don't think that the Xcode is running in it. I think you could run Xcode if you share your computer to your Vision. So you would have your computer screen appear on it, and you'd be using Xcode to do that. There is as a note, by the way, there is a developer tether that is available that is not promoted right now. I mean, I'm not publicly promoting it, but if you go into the developer tools, there's a tether for the headset that will allow you to very quickly, test things inside the headset for a developer building stuff for it. So that's something you're probably going to want to use.
And $299 is the price on that, available only to developers, and it essentially replaces the right temple. So the left temple still has your battery output, and then the right temple has a similar circular connector that has a USB-C. We were talking about that a little bit this morning. Very cool. Next question.
Chris Widener from Lafayette, Indiana. So, since many businesses are pulling back from the cloud to on-premises, how do you think this will affect large format events?
Jeffrey?
So what he's talking about is what's called cloud repatriation. I can say that 10 times fast. And there's many different reasons why you would do that. Cost is the biggest reason because cloud costs can be a lot more. And then, of course, having all that clutter out in the interwebs can be a lot of pain. When it comes to doing large format events and things like that, I think that what they're going to be doing is they'll plan to be out in the cloud for those events, but then reel everything back in when those events are done. That way they keep a close eye and a close glove on what is out in the cloud, so other people can't take it, or so they don't have it sitting there for years and costing them tons of money trying to keep that all together. So that's basically what's happening.
Alex?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure whether this was a reference to, we're moving back to on-prem for events, or whether we're moving to on-prem, because I don't actually know a lot of companies that are going more back to on-prem from the cloud. I mean, if they've moved to the cloud, I don't know that many that are pulling back. I think that if we're talking about on-prem events, I think people haven't, I think a lot of, the way I kind of think of it is event personnel, both in companies and event companies and everything else. They were like a lot of football players. There are a bunch of football players. You can make it football or soccer, American football or other football. They're just playing a game that they knew really well. And then for 3 years, they had to learn water polo. And so they got into it. They survived it. They were going through it. But when the water went down, they really wanted to go back to playing football. And so I think that they're attempting to do that. But the reality is that the future is probably water polo. We're not, as companies get better and the technology gets better, we're not going to, physical events aren't going to go away, but they're going to keep changing because the technology accelerated so much. The ability to connect companies. We just had a guest on Michael Krasny on Gray Matter yesterday talking about environmental impact of, one of the things that came up was environmental impact of events. You're going to start seeing companies, especially environmental companies, are going to have a harder and harder time. If you're talking about environmental change, getting everybody to fly into San Francisco, or wherever you want, or UAE, is going to be really hard to defend over time. And so you're going to see they're probably going to be the front edge of that, where they start doing more and more events online because they just can't deal with the press of, hey, what's the carbon impact? At some point, paying for carbon credits is not going to be enough, and so they're going to have to, and so you're going to start to see that technology continue to move forward. And the bottom line is just a lot of people are becoming more and more resistant to, traveling to a lot of these things. And it's not everybody. There's 30% of people that love to do it. There's 30% could take it or leave it. And there's 30% that are never coming back. And that 30% is like, how do you address that 30%? And I think that's going to mean that there's going to be an online version of things that's going to keep on evolving.
Nigel?
I think if you outsourced something, be it your data center or your technology, because it gave you a short-term cheapness factor, then long-term you're going to face a flexibility problem. I think if you outsourced or went to the cloud for flexibility, you're never coming back.
And Craig?
Yeah, just to key off that. So I spend my living helping large companies migrate around, and there was an irrational view that, we've got to go to the cloud for whatever reason, and they weren't really clear about it. But once they actually start using it, they repatriate, as Nigel mentioned. And so the good thing about all of this is that now that we've got more experience operating whatever it is in the cloud, sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it allows more nimbleness. But the good thing is we have enough experience now, or a lot of people do, at realizing the actual impact and making a decision based on the reality.
Courtney?
Yeah, I have relatives that work for Dell, and during the pandemic, they, of course, went to remote operation for everything, and they've only come back partially. They only have their employees that have been operating remotely come back on maybe 2 days a week, and the rest of the time they're working from home remotely. So if they're capable of handling it in their particular division remotely just as easily as they would at their desk inside that whole campus full of buildings, which they sold off a bunch of, then they're letting them continue to operate at home. My nephew, I don't even know if he ever goes in, maybe once a month or twice a month. So I don't think they're swarming back to in-person. As far as the events go, I think you can learn more, especially about, CES, where you're going to go to a big event where they're showing new equipment. I found, 10 years ago, before the pandemic, or 5 years ago at least, you could learn more about new equipment that was announced at CES or NAB than you could attending there, because you're competing for the attention of the product demo person there with other people, and you can't get in and ask all your pertinent questions. And you can find almost all that information online now for the product when it rolls out, and you can watch comprehensive demonstration videos, which you don't really have the time to do in a live event. So I think a lot of people are now staying away from the live events because they can get more information and learn more at home, unless they need to kick the tires, and physically feel the things.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond from Chicago, Illinois. What is something in Keynote I should know about?
Alex?
Kyle's keeping me honest. I said, anytime someone asks a question about Keynote, I'll just answer like, so now I'm going to have to build a list of things that I need, that I'm ready to show. But I'll show you one here. So one of the things that is common is you'll grab onto an image and you'll drop it in like this. And here's an image I took up from an alleyway. And you'll say, okay, well, I really wish it was rounded, because the new thing is everyone wants rounded corners. And the issue that you get into is, okay, I want a picture frame. That's not rounded, but I can go in here and I can find a rounded corner. Okay, so now I have rounded corners. So that's great. And I can, do this little scale and make the rounded corners, bigger, or, I can make them more tight or rounded, but they're very limited in what they do. And I can do a drop shadow. I can't really do it here because it's a black background, but I can do a drop shadow. But what I can't do is I can't put a border around it. So if I want to have a little border around that and I want to have more control over it, I can't do that. And so if you start dragging images in and giving it this rounded corner, you're gonna put yourself in a corner. So what you do instead is, the way I do this is that I build a shape first. So I take the shape and I put it in here, and now I have a shape with rounded corners. Okay. And then with that shape selected, I can go in here and I can grab that same image and drag it in on the shape. So now it's in the shape. So the image is now in the shape here. and I can move that image around inside of that shape, which I can't do with the other one, right? I can't, it's much harder. I can make some adjustments there, but I can make it like the shape here. So now I have the shape where I want it. And if I hit done, it kind of looks the same as this one over here, except that now I can grab onto this edge here, right? See this little thing, and I can play with my corners interactively when I do that. And so now I have that. I also, with this selected, I can say, oh, I want a line for a border. So now I can give it a border. Black doesn't work, but let's take gray. So now I have a little gray outline there. I can't. It's very hard to do that with this format. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, always put your images into shapes, because if you drag an image in directly, you're going to pay the price of a lack of flexibility later. You always have it here. The other thing is, I tend to build a lot of quilts, so I tend to, for a lot of my presentations, I'm going to have one image up here, and I'm going to have another image like this, and I'm going to, make this one, smaller, like I grabbed the wrong thing there. I'm going to make it, demos. Anyway, so I'm going to make these different sizes. I'm going to make a lot of these. A lot of times I'll just make them with the shapes. Like, oh, this is where I'm going to put images. And when I do that, I can then, if I'm making the shapes quickly and moving them around, I just then replace them all. And now once you have this, you just simply replace the image. So you go to image and you say, I want to replace it. You put another image in. And so you don't have to drag things onto it again. And that will save you a lot of time. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful if you have Keynote.
Next question.
And it's from Jerry Hoyle in Wesley Chapel, North Carolina. For the panelists that received the Vision Pro yesterday, first impressions.
Go ahead, Alex.
First impressions are, it's groundbreaking. I mean, I spent probably 4 hours or 5 hours in it yesterday, and I watched movies in it. The visual quality of watching a movie is kind of amazing. I found that using your fingers instead of the controllers, which I'm very, very adept with, was just easier. I do find the downsides that I find on it are mostly that I don't find the headset fits very well. It feels heavy because I don't think it's heavy. I think that it's just it's funky in the way that they've set it up, trying to make it look nice. The second thing is that I find there's a little eye reflection when you watch some movies in a dark environment that bothers me a little bit. There's also, I'm having some trouble with eye registration. So, the calibration of the eyes suddenly I can't click something off. Like I can see it, I just can't get to it. So the fact that so that's been a little bit of a challenge, but the 3D stuff, when it works, like there's a couple apps that I'm probably going to tweet out, like these are the apps you want to download for it to see it. And when it works, you're like, oh, this is the future. When it doesn't work, you're like, it's version 1. But it's a pretty amazing headset.
Craig?
Yeah, so I'll echo that. It is pretty stunning. I'd be careful about the first impressions in general, because there is a steep learning curve. It's a different OS. It's a different paradigm of working. I'm coming from using the Quest 3 for added monitors and whatnot around me, and I found that the usability difference, the UX of using controllers, you can use fingers on the Quest 3 as well. But doing it with eyeballs, I found really exhausting because we're used to using mice and trackpads and all that to move your cursor around when you're not even looking at it or clicking buttons, and you start to look away. So I find that the UX on the Vision Pro, using your eyes for navigation, is a little bit exhausting. But the other part, to echo Alex, the resolution bump from the Quest 3 is that much more compelling, whether it's looking at a Zoom window or primarily looking at 3D movies, or panoramas are really amazing. And that resolution difference from the Quest 3 is more significant than I was expecting.
Yeah, I definitely, my experience has been overwhelmingly positive with the Vision. When I sat down and said, hey, I want to do more work on it, the first thing I did was I'm going to hook up a Bluetooth keyboard. And that's where it's like, it's almost unfinished. Like I can't hit enter to commit text, and I can't hit escape to back out of something, and I can't use a mouse yet. Eventually, I'm going to want those things. But but the demos that we did with Zoom yesterday and watching films and all that, it's been really great. Coming up at 9 a.m. today, Pacific, noon Eastern, we've got our new panelist meeting. So if you're interested in seeing what it takes to be on the panel, joining us, offering your wisdom and contributing to our show, we'd love to see you there. So look out for the link in Discord for that. And we would love to see you there. But we've got some more questions coming up. So let's jump into the second hour. And welcome back. We've got some more Q&A, so let's hop into the next question.
And the next question is popping in from Guy Cochran in Seattle. How did Tony Mobley and office hours influence a news station?
Samuel?
Yeah, Taylor Sanderhouse, he was in After Hours yesterday, and he was showing us a little bit of what he does at his station. And he worked on the Tony Mobley show in the cloud, so he got familiar with using the cloud and a distributed team. So now he's taking some of these concepts into this TV station that he works at. So he's got a Xreal system, and he's got 4 vMix instances that he runs in their local cloud there, and the workflow from office hours was what helped him to get the ideas or the workflows.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, really a proud pop-up moment there, Alex. I mean, you should really feel proud of this community. Something that we were just trying to help Tony. So I remember being in After Hours, Tony talking about his show, and we're like, hey, we should put your show in the cloud. And we got some volunteers and got it all up there. And then Taylor volunteered to help out, and he learned some skills and took over. And then as he was demonstrating yesterday, I was like, dude, you learned that from doing Tony's show. And so he's now influencing a news station, which really sends ripples throughout the industry. If they pick up what this station's doing, and it's preview and program in a Zoom meeting, the ability to control from afar. But when you push that button from afar, it's actually moving cameras, rerouting signals. It'll say like, take live view number 9, reroute it, and put it into input 10 on the switcher, all with the press of a spacebar. So somebody's programming the entire show, and then another person is just pushing spacebar when it's live. So when you press that spacebar, it brings the music down, it brings the lavs up, all with one spacebar. So it loads into preview, and then when they hit space, it kicks it over to program. So it's a rhythm. They do this stuff all the time. But to see that they're starting to have these same workflows that we developed for cloud, it's just mind-blowing to see that we're influencing a news station that could go worldwide. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Alex?
Well, and that's part of why we exist, is to be kind of trying to figure these things out, and that's why we share a lot of what we're doing. And when we work on these, whether you're volunteering for working on this show here or volunteering for one of the other productions of people that are here, it's all of us figuring it out, and you don't know where it's going to point. We're just throwing matches at straw, and just really looking at where it makes the most sense. But I think that I'm really excited about what Taylor worked on, and I'm excited about Tony's show. And again, it doesn't matter how many people are viewing any of these shows, as they are kind of the standard bearer for, this is what can be done. Again, even though, we don't have hundreds of thousands or millions of views, I know from people in the industry that they refer back to this show often when they say we should be doing better for our broadcast. We should be doing this is, if you look at this group right now, to just today, and almost a random spouting, the quality of the video from every panelist here is better than almost every remote contributor to CNN. So the thing is that we're kind of proving this model, and the way that we're doing it, again, the way we've built this online thing is definitely affecting the way people do production. So I would highly recommend for people who are looking at it to get into, be part of some of these teams, whether it's Tony's team. I would highly recommend our running this show, and not just once, but look at how do you do it over and over again, so that you really understand how it works and get comfortable with the idea of cloud production.
Next question.
Grant Whitehead from Adelaide, Australia. On the Vision Pro battery, have you tested plugging in other adapters like Ethernet into the power USB-C?
Alex?
I haven't done that. It's a good idea. I didn't even think of doing that, to be honest. So I will, we'll take a look at whether that makes sense. It does have a, the battery has, there's a battery there to charge it. I haven't tried to connect that to anything, but it seems like it could work.
Courtney?
Yeah, you might look and see it. I think it's only for carrying power. Look on the connector that attaches to the side of the headset and see how many contacts there are in there. If it's got more than just
it's a custom connector. It's got a lot.
Can you see the connector? It's got multiple contacts inside there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe it's just transmitting data.
No, maybe not.
It could just have two if it's just transmitting power.
No, it's got a bunch of little things in there. It's hard to tell, but it definitely has more than just two or three.
And if you look back at that video or that picture where somebody, shoved the SIM-ejector in and popped out the connector that's going into the battery, it's an oversized lightning connector. So there's a lot of pins on the battery.
But they could be using multiple pins to carry current.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's 6 pins in here, so they could definitely pull data, I think.
Great. You ought to try, get one of those hubs that has USB-C power pass-through for, breakout hub for your MacBook Pro and see if you can pull data in and out.
Check back in 65 minutes. Next question.
Chris Widener, Lafayette, Indiana, asking, I had an issue putting a training video on YouTube. It interpreted training info as doxing other than simple blur. How has the panel worked with this kind of thing with YouTube's rules?
Go ahead, Alex.
Very carefully. You should be really careful about, there's a couple things that you want to pay attention to. And you should, doxing is definitely something YouTube's pretty sensitive to. So you have to be very, very careful and make sure that you blur it, that there's absolutely no way that someone could do it. Or better yet, just don't put it in the image or really black it out. Like I wouldn't blur it out. I would black it out. When I do those, when I've done a couple of those for YouTube for other folks, we very carefully, there's a lot of Photoshop work or a lot of, we've even tracked them into moving parts where someone's got a handheld and we make it look like it's just blank, and there's not blurred, it's just blank. And it takes more work, but you got to be very careful because YouTube you may get a strike out of that. So you got to be very careful of doxing. The other thing to be careful of is making things that look like they're for children. So this was something that I had to learn, like I had to understand how it worked. I thought, you just say, this isn't for children and it's okay. Not okay. YouTube can actually come back and turn it on and say, hey, you said this wasn't for children, but it actually is for children. And when they do that, it's going to lock down all your comments. You're going to see a huge drop in your viewership. You're going to see all these other things. So you got to be very careful of that, especially if you have a clean show like ours. And ours is not because it's obviously for adults. But if you do something like, hey, let me show you how to make a little craft, and it's got bright colors and there's no swearing and it's very clean and you have a very, a view of it, all those things. YouTube may decide, and they have a whole team in there looking at those things. The AI the eye will bring these things up to people and go, that does look like it could be for kids. And they'll go in for you and just tell you, hey, you didn't mark this correctly, and they'll mark it for you. And you got to be very careful of that process because it'll be a knife to your show. So unless you're making something for kids, make sure that it really feels like it's for adults. so it's don't do, and if you have kids in the episode showing things, you're going to be more likely to get that. So overall, you just got to be very careful of, and YouTube, and this isn't YouTube's fault. This is YouTube following really, really dumb regulations created by dumb people. It's like the regulations created by the FTC or whatever that sued Google for this. This is why Google's doing it. They are, it's good that, their heart's in the right place. It's just very poorly implemented. And so the way that they've come down on it, written by people who don't even use email, is just the most ham-fisted, group of regulations on how they have to handle COPA. And it's really a mess. And so, YouTube's just doing the best they can.
Jeffrey?
What I'll do for a lot of my videos will be, first of all, I'll go into the settings and I will do the default setting view as private. That way, when I upload a video, it doesn't go automatically public or unlisted. Public and unlisted means somebody else can view it in the public space. But when you have it set to private, it's you and I suppose somebody at Google could watch it too. And of course, they're going to be reviewing that from there. I always like to put up videos at least 24 hours in advance. So not only can it render properly, but also so it can then go through all those security checks. And if it does find something that's questionable, then you got to ask yourself, is this something that I need to either fix or I need to dispute? Because they do have a lot of ways that you can dispute that, because, you know, they do make mistakes. They hear a word and they, for example, and they think it's another word, and then all of a sudden that's like, oh, you can't do that. So that's why I have that set to a 24-hour period to let the algorithm just try and figure out what this video is all about. And like I said, if there are problems, then I can take it down. I can make the fixes and edits and then bring it back up and not have that problem.
Next question.
Tommy Shands from St. Paul, Minnesota. What of the 600 apps that Apple has announced for the Vision Pro are you excited to try?
Alex?
I started trying a couple. I think the one that yesterday that I was the most excited about was the Jig. Jig is the one where it'll throw a 3D object and you can, and they're building a platform. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they're successful or someone else, where you can put models in, you can build them step by step. So basically, I looked at a stent operation where they for a blood vessel. And what's interesting about it is that you can hit next step, and it's showing you every step of that process. And it lets you, if you want to, you can grab onto any of those things, pull them up and look at them, and then when you go to the next step, they pop back into where they needed to be. And so you can look at those, and they can be animated, they can be moving. And probably the thing that I was most interested in. Now I will say that I didn't think of using the headset to build IKEA furniture, but they had a furniture thing where they show you how to build a desk in all the steps, all those stupid things, the little pieces of paper that we use that never make any sense. It makes sense. You know, you have 8 steps. You can see where the legs should be. You can see what the thing looks like. I could totally see myself setting my desk pieces next to this desk pieces and just putting it together. And I think it would cut the swearing down in half, or maybe all 90% reduction in swearing, and a 90% increase in the use of all the screws.
Guy.
Yeah, it was a pleasure watching CJ play with his yesterday. I'd asked specifically for the Mix Effect app, and watching him move super sources around was a joy. That was one that just blew my mind. The other one was Excel, just seeing, how clean it was, because that's one of the things is if you're on the road and you're bringing these monitors, if you've ever had to lug around a ton of monitors, if you can not have to bring as many, put some kind of Xreals or MetaQuest, whatever it is on, and still be able to see a lot more of the show. If I can tell you that your focus is soft and I'm at the back of the room, that's crazy. I can still talk to you over comms and be like, hey, watch your focus too. Hey, so being able to route around and be somewhere else in the building. So NDI Studio Monitor or the NDI Sienna app where I can pull in the feeds and put multiples up, that's going to potentially be a game changer. So that's something I'm excited to play with. So there's a few out there. I mean, being a former Final Cut Pro instructor, Final Cut, I mean, I've always had that Minority Report, kind of dream of being able to edit with hand gestures. Watching CJ with DaVinci Resolve yesterday, it seemed it needs some work. It's not quite there, but we'll see if Apple, because it's their app, if they've tuned it a little bit more for their the influencers and those that are content creators. So those are the things that I'm excited about for the Apple Vision Pro.
Alex?
The movies are pretty impressive too. Like the movie stuff is a pretty impressive thing to watch. I can't imagine, I can't imagine being on a flight without it. Like this is I can imagine some flights having 20% of the folks on the flight with these headsets on, because everything just goes away. And what I will say is that I generally am using it now with the AirPod Maxes most of the time. I just throw them on and put them on. There's like the Alicia Keys thing was not very impressive. I was like, I don't think this is really going to work to do concerts this way. I put the AirPod Maxes on and I was like, okay, it does work, and they just pair up really quickly. And so you really do want to, those two parts go really well together.
I'm going to pile on with Excel, just because if you work in a really wide table, the ability to not have to scroll left and right to see what you're doing as you're fixing a database is just out of this world. And I was like, all of a sudden, I went from having a 30-inch screen in front of me to having a 10-foot screen in front of me, and the text was legible, and that was fantastic. Both Resolve and Mix Effect were the iPad apps running in the Vision. So Mix Effect actually worked really, really well. That design translated great. Resolve, like I actually thought this would be cool. I grabbed the points in the gain and the lift gammon gain and was moving the colors around. But then when I went to try and change the scopes from parade over to waveform or to vector scope, like I couldn't tell was I not able to select that thing because my eye tracking wasn't working, or was it just not on? So apps like that are going to need a mouse, but it's coming. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Hot Springs, Arkansas. The Chiefs at Ravens game had to be stopped because of a drone flying nearby. How do you quickly react or shut down a drone in a situation like that?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, we have our ways. They may not be legal in the United States. There's a variety of companies that have, and there's a good video on YouTube about the best anti-drone technology. They have these directional RF jammers that will jam the frequency. They can also spoof GPS to suddenly the drone thinks it's at a different altitude than it really is, and so it comes down, and you can do it that way. They even have other drones that drop little nets over the top of the drone if they're using conventional propellers to drive the drone. So, and of course, the Army and our military has a number of anti-drone devices in there that automatically scan for drones and can send out these GPS spoofing signals and or RF jamming signals to jam communications. They have to spoof the GPS because a lot of them operate autonomously, so they load it with their mission, and it just uses GPS to position it, and it runs its mission on the drone. And so even though you're not communicating directly with the drone at the time, if it still has access to GPS satellites, it could carry out its mission. So that's why they have to have the GPS jammers or spoofers to bring them down. Or I've even seen some people train eagles to attack them and bring them down and grab them and take them out of the sky. There's a lot of video online of that happen.
Alex?
One of the big concerns is when you're in a populated area is if you shoot the drone down, you're going to hit somebody on the way down. So that they're really trying to realign them to go somewhere else. So if you're talking about specifically with a game, that they just have a lot of people and they don't want to have it go out exactly everything else otherwise that Courtney said, which is they actually have developed some pretty interesting laser systems. That the lasers are nice because it's not like you don't have to get to them. All you have to do is track them, and you can heat them up. So pretty quickly. But again, that works in non-populated areas. The nets have been around for about 5 or 6 years now. That they have drones with nets that'll go out and find that drone. The drone that just hit the U.S. base in Jordan was it is a drone that followed another drone. So it was a Iranian drone that was following a U.S. drone back to base. So that was really what and so it created confusion because they couldn't figure out what was going on with it. That probably won't happen again. And so there's probably going to be a set of maneuvers that make it very easy for them to see what's going on there. But I think that as far as games go, that's the biggest problem that they have, and usually that's why they create for most of these stadiums they create a safety barrier that's oftentimes half a mile around the space there's a no-fly zone for drones. That way they can respond to them while they're not over the stadium. I know that we've requested to use drones in the stadiums, and we haven't gotten over that hump yet, where they just say nope. You can't do that. So they're pretty careful about it because it is, especially as you see what's being used overseas, there is going to be a catastrophic event with a drone in a stadium in the next 5 years, and it's it's just too hard to defend against all of those things. And so I think everyone's worried about it. Everyone thinks about it. That no one knows how to completely stop it.
Mitchell?
President Joe Biden lives up the road a piece, and they have a roadside sign that says on certain dates, drones are absolutely prohibited from running. And I asked one of the Secret Service men there, what do you use? And he said, I can't tell you.
Yeah. You will see everyone's been like, we'll fine you or something if you break these barriers. You're going to see the legal blowback of flying a drone where it doesn't belong is going to go up a lot over the next decade. So you have to really pay attention to what the rules are, because they're going to not have any sense of humor about it, especially because they're used so heavily in military operations now in Europe that everyone's worried about it.
Next question.
From Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. Early in my career, I was heavily involved in SMPTE. Do any panelists keep their membership up, and what are the benefits today?
Go ahead, Alex.
I keep my membership up. I get a couple discounts here and there. You can go to some of the SMPTE conferences, so on and so forth. I mostly pay my membership because I think SMPTE needs to exist. So I put money into it just because I want it to be around. It's not that much money. I think it's like $100 and some a year or something like that. And it's worth it just to make sure that, because I think it's important that grounding for our industry continues to exist and thrive.
And they have the best bars.
Do they?
SMPTE bars.
Yeah, the
Courtney.
color.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was thinking like you're going to a bar and having drinks at where's the that would be a great bar, by the way. We should do that at NAB. Call it the SMPTE bar, and it just has big bars in the back.
It's perfect.
And there's a little tone in the background all the time. 1K. Beep. Yeah.
Okay, Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been a member for 45 years. I'm a life member now. And once you get more than 20 years in as an active member, they give you a life membership and your dues go way down. And you get the publication. I always subscribe to the SMPTE Journal, which is now electronically delivered. But another, which you see, that journal is published monthly, and you see a lot of leading edge technology come out there, and a lot of test results and a lot of new standards that are being developed, and so on. The Hollywood SMPTE meeting is very interesting. Once a month, they will put on a program where they will have presenters present new technology or, different subject matters. A lot of times there's screenings of new films or new techniques. That's where I saw the Netflix demo of their camera tests, which they do every year, and projected in a nice the Linwood Dunn Theater, which is the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, where they project it nice 4K projection, and they have cinematographers that shot the stuff show up and talk about it. So they have some very interesting programs. Whether they do that in your neighborhood with your SMPTE chapter or not, that's questionable. Maybe the New York and Hollywood divisions have a lot of programs like that, and I don't know if your local division has programs that they put on, but check into that as well. It's worthwhile, and they even have a student membership. If you're of that age, you can join SMPTE as a student, and it's highly discounted.
And every business is a people business. So if there is a professional organization and it's an industry that you are passionate about and want to spend your career in, making connections with other human beings who are passionate about the same things is never, ever, never, ever going to steer you in the wrong direction. Next question.
Tim Snyder from Louisville, Kentucky. What's a great 5.1 audio embedder for live streaming?
Alex?
It depends on, obviously, if you want it to be portable. There's some open gear versions of these that can be used. One of the things that you want to look at is whether you need 12G or 6G. So if you need a 6G version, that's what I've been using in the pack that I use for the 5.1 tests. And I'm using Blackmagic 6G version. So this is AES. So you note that you have to get to 8 channels on a small box. There's other ways. There's other great embedders. But if you're just looking for a little box that will do this, you'll need to convert to AES for both the options that I'm giving you right now, which is the the Blackmagic one. I'm trying to find it really quickly. I got to open up the AJA one. The AJA makes another one that's 12G. It's a lot more expensive. This is $1245. The Blackmagic one is about $325 or something like that. And the main difference between them is 12G versus 6G. I mean, there's an SFP on the AJA one, but anyway. So those are the two small throwdowns that you can use. Of course, there's lots of other embedders. You can use FS. There's a variety of FSs that will let you, then just route those channels in and reroute them and move them around and so on and so forth. There's bigger boxes that will embed this video depending on what resolution. So the questions are: is it 1080p? Do you want it to be rack mountable, or do you want it to be a throwdown? Those are the kind of things you have to decide, and how much money do you have to spend to do these? There's also there is a Sonifex, a company called Sonifex that makes a Dante. If you're doing 3G, so if you're doing up to 1080p 60, Sonifex makes a Dante embedder So you can just pass Dante to it. It's up to 16 channels, and it'll just embed or de-embed or both to the SDI channel.
Next question.
Grant Whitehead from Adelaide, Australia is back. If you can only use one Vision Pro app, what would you choose?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, and after hearing the clarity of the image, I'd probably go with Apple TV. So I'm talking more from an entertainment perspective. It sounds like that's the reason for a lot of folks wanting to use it. But for production, it would be NDI Studio Monitor or Sienna's NDI Monitor app, which I just went to go look on the App Store. And it's normally $99 all day. I'd pay for that, $100, no big deal. But it's only $9 today. So for those of you who have not bought that app, it's worth every penny because you can put it on as many Apple TVs as you want and on as many Apple devices as you want. So if you don't have that app, go buy it.
Mitch?
Dinosaurs.
It is very scary when they come at you. Your heart races a little bit. Alex?
I would say that from a future perspective of what I want to do with it and what I've wanted to do with these headsets for a long time, Jig is the thing that I'm the most excited about right now of all the apps that I've put onto it. Otherwise, it'd probably be Apple TV. But I will say that the beauty of what they've done is the ecosystem is that you don't have to have one app. I mean, I think that you feel very constrained in what you're buying for the Quest. In this sense, you're just throwing things in there that you already used. I mean, opening up my notes, opening up my email, opening up your messages, everything else, all inside of Vision is what makes it part. It's a big part of the sell is that everything's all connected.
Courtney?
Yeah, Jig is, I think, designed to work with AutoCAD files, so it gives you a lot of nice things that you can walk around and tear things apart and see them in the real environment. But I would get, if I had only had one app, I'd get Parallels so I could run all my Windows programs. I could run Windows 11 on them. That'd be great.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Starling Plaza, Texas. Do you need to waterproof the Pro Max iPhones?
Go ahead, Alex.
I've never tried to do that because I wouldn't take a $400, $500 headset out and use it in the rain. so I don't think that I would like I think it's just my waterproofing is behavior. It's just not what I would use outside.
Jeffrey?
You're talking the iPhones, not the headphones. The iPhones, you can actually get cases that are waterproof if you need an extra set of waterproofness to that. So like I interviewed Catalyst at CES. Not only do they have cases that will waterproof, but they also have these really cool little floaties, the lanyards that you can attach to the case. And then if it does drop in like a pool or something like that, that little floaty just brings it right up. It was pretty sweet.
Alex?
I inadvertently tested my iPhone 14 by falling into my pool with it in my pocket. And, nothing like cleaning your pool while you're on a phone call and they get to listen to you go, whoa, and off they go. And it survived just fine.
They are IP68 rated. So if it hasn't been bent or dinged and everything's in pretty good condition, it's supposed to be good for 30 minutes, 30 feet under. I remember when the first iPhone claimed to have any sort of water resistance or waterproofing at all, I was like, well, let's call them on it. So I was in Thailand with a bunch of elephants, and I was in like this pond with all of these elephants, and I was like, okay, we're just going in, and I got some of the best footage and the best pictures I ever took with an iPhone that day, and it was all because I didn't need to worry about where was I taking that phone. Go ahead, Alex.
I'd love that I just read this thing about Steve Jobs when they said that they made the iPod as small as it could be. And the first thing he did is grab the iPod. They'd spent $1 million on this demo. And he grabbed the iPod and he threw it into a glass of water. And as bubbles came out, he said, there's still more room. Like he just said that and he just said that and someone walked out. I was just like, oh my goodness. So, anyway, anyway, it was a fun story connected to waterproofing.
Next question.
Tommy Shands from St. Paul, Minnesota. What volunteer opportunities are the faux office hours? Are there 4 office hours? And where can one find out more about them?
The best thing to do is to fill out. There's a form that goes out with emails that say that there are, fill out the volunteer form so we know that you're interested in volunteering. You're going to see more calls to action where, hey, we're looking for more people to do this or that or other things. So look for that. A lot of times that's going to come up in Discord under my announcements. One came out for NAB. We've already started to collect an incredible team for NAB, but that one's going to be one there. Some of the prime ones is, of course, production for this show, which is extremely necessary. This is not something that we all just jump in Zoom and do. There's an incredible team on the back end that's making that happen, and you get to meet a lot of people and work with a lot of people and learn how we become part of that community. So I would highly recommend taking a look at that, and we're going to, again, give you some more opportunities to know about that specifically. On the third week of every month, we have the new volunteer meeting, which is the same time, 9 a.m. And then on the fourth, I'm going to get this right, the fourth, we have a volunteer meeting. And we've been a little bit looser on that, but what you can expect on that fourth one is going to be very specific. This is what we're looking for. So you're going to see calls to action going out throughout the month, but really we're going to talk about things that we're really interested in. And it's just an incredible opportunity. The people who volunteer, it just brings out the people that you want to know. So from a networking perspective, from a learning perspective, and from just, if you enjoy this show, it gets done because we all do it perspective, it's really, really powerful to jump into the volunteering. So make sure to sign up for that, and we'll be doing calls to action throughout the month, every month.
Next question.
Brody Hefner from New York City. In Marques Brownlee's Vision Pro review, I was struck by his ability to effortlessly play ping pong while wearing it. Is the evidence of a significant advance in precise low-latency imagery and real-time user orientation over other headphones?
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, so comparing it to the Quest 3, the pass-through on the Quest 3, I think, is plenty competent. You can do things, you can shake your head. One of the tricks that all the headsets use from a latency lag perspective is they won't have the same resolution, so it gets a little blurry when you shift your head. I noticed that's one of the tests I did last night with the Vision Pro, is if you shake your head back and forth a little bit, the resolution goes down just slightly. It's a little bit blurred. You have to really look for it. But I'd say because of the volume of the resolution, the refresh rate, it's more impressive what Apple's done on the Vision Pro from a latency perspective, whereas the lower res, I think, in general, the pass-through for most things between the Quest 3 and the Vision Pro are pretty similar.
Courtney?
Be interesting to find out if the sensors, the cameras that are built into the Vision Pro use global shutter or not. And if they do, then it can be very low latency to, his demonstration was not really interacting with anything virtual. It was just, real world pass through of playing ping pong in the real world with a real paddle in his hand. And think about it, that those cameras and the displays are in the same housing, so they don't have to do any type of compression. So they can have super high bandwidth video running between the camera and the display processor to put that local image onto your in front of your eyes. So there should be very little delay in that. And that, of course, the processing, any processing or compression that you would add to that would add delay, and that was what would make you very seasick when there's delay in what you're seeing and your head movement tied together. That would be a problematic problem. But I think they've engineered it such that there's very little delay because it's high bandwidth uncompressed video.
Jeffrey?
The other thing that when I watched it, he was sitting in a chair, and it was his room was fairly well lit. I like the fact that the complexion of his skin was not a problem in actually controlling that. So that's a good thing. But the real question is, when you are sitting upright in a well lit area, if it works well. But what happens when you're lying in bed and the lights are very low because, you're just trying to relax to maybe fall asleep or something like that, decide to play a game of Pong? Because a lot of times when I use the Meta Quest, and I tried to use hand gestures for that, the low lighting would always be problematic. I'd always get notifications on that. Even when I use the paddles and you're lying in bed and you got covers and things like that are just kind of peeking over your hands. Even with the controllers, they get a little bit confused because they don't know where everything is. I'd love to see somebody doing that same thing in more than just an upright sitting position during the day type situation.
And it's worth noting, in regards to the latency, it's so low. If you're in a reasonably well lit room, it doesn't have to be studio lights, but if you're just in a normally lit room, you can't tell that it's a screen. And the anecdote that I'll give is yesterday I was actually walking with it, and I was going to show my wife something, and I said, oh, I should restart this so it starts over from the beginning. I was walking up the stairs with the vision on, and I turned it off, and all of a sudden it was as if I had blinders on. It's like, oh, wait, this is a screen. I'm not looking through goggles. I'm looking at a video screen. When you're in low light, it definitely that you start to see the noise and you start to see a little bit of artifacting there. But in most situations, it's scary good. Next question.
Chris Widener from Lafayette, Indiana. If you're doing cloud recording to Zoom, is there any way to transfer those files without downloading to something like Frame.io or Dropbox?
Go ahead, Guy.
I can't think of a way, but I can tell you how I do it, and that's do it in the cloud, because when we do an AWS speed test, we're getting 4,000 megabits per second. Think about that for a second. Up and down, 4,000 megabits per second. So I can pull anything from cloud to cloud. It's very, very fast. So I'll pull it down up there, then move it over, and then I can archive it or do what I want, or I can even edit up there and then kick it back out. But this is one of the benefits of even using something like Shadow PC. That I think it's like $40 a month. You can get a Shadow PC, or at Mac Stadium, you can get a Mac in the cloud. For if you're doing this stuff all the time, it just makes sense to leave it up there in the cloud and not try to bring it home over your 150 megabit connection and wait hours for it. You can just do it up there in literally 40x the speed. So, well, one option if you can't figure out another way to do it.
And I would rather, when it comes to Zoom recording, I would rather record my video some way on a machine as opposed to doing the cloud recording bit, because they do some sort of conversion on their end that is a black box if you really don't know what they're doing with the quality. So if you want to be in control of that, maybe take a look at another solution like Guy's talking about. Next question.
And next question popping in from Douglas Carmichael. How well does the Sienna NDI Monitor work? I thought NDI couldn't work well over Wi-Fi.
Mitch, what do you know?
I'll be happy to show you what it looks like right here. And if I go down here and I go over here, it's pretty easy. Click. And I'm going to tap it to select my iPhone. There she blows.
And so that's live over Wi-Fi?
That's live over Wi-Fi, and as you can see, it's working fine. As long as I get the phone in the right position, it'll work just dandy. There we go.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I got very excited when I heard it was $9. I checked. It's currently $49. I don't know, maybe I just misheard the price. I'm not saying $49's a bad price for that. I'm just saying it's not $9.
Yeah, I paid $99. So when I looked it up, it said $9.99. I asked people in chat to confirm, and somebody gave me well, I guess it was an Australian price. So I assumed that the $9.99 was correct, but $49 is still half off. So it's worth every penny, because I have it on multiple Apple TVs, at least 4 of them here. So that's alone. I mean, I save so much over a Bird Dog Play, and it's more reliable than a Bird Dog Play. So there's that.
It could have been a flub on the pricing set. I remember there was one time on iTunes where they put out like all 8 of the Harry Potter movies as a bundle for $20. And I was like, oh, somebody messed up. I'm going to buy that right now. No matter how much I like these movies, that is the great price. But Jeffrey, go ahead.
You also have to remember, first of all, the bit rate that you're sending the video from the Apple TV to the wherever you're going, what type of Wi-Fi router you have. If you're using Wi-Fi 5, you're probably going to run into more problems than if you're running a Wi-Fi 6E or even the newer Wi-Fi 7 protocols, because they're meant to stream video faster. And of course, a lot of other factors involved. What type of video that you're passing through? Is it running at 60 frames a second? If it's running at 30 frames a second, or 2 frames a second if it's just a presentation, then these things are all factors in how NDI will receive that. And then finally, if you're sending NDI to multiple destinations, from that one box, as opposed to doing some sort of daisy chain where the video then goes to like a vmix, and then the vmix will then send it to somewhere else, as opposed to the signal coming from the Apple TV going to vmix and then going to another vmix and maybe going to a monitor for review or anything like that. So if you have those factors kind of figured out and using your best protocol, like a best Wi-Fi router that's out there, or even better, connecting up to Ethernet and using hard cables, then you're going to have your best solution. But the least amount, Wi-Fi 5 or anything like that, you're going to run into problems.
Samuel?
Yeah, well, there's two flavors of NDI. There's NDI HX, which is a lower bandwidth and higher latency, and then there's the full NDI. So the NDI HX can kind of work over Wi-Fi. I know there's some solutions for that. It's not, of course, not ideal, but you'll have problems sending a full NDI signal over Wi-Fi because it's just it's not enough. It's too little latency and too high bandwidth for it to work properly.
Guy?
Yeah, exactly as Samuel said. I was just going to mention that with NDI HX3, it's gotten even more efficient. So they are touting, like the official NDI folks are saying you can use NDI over Wi-Fi, whereas before people like Jeff Keithley and I would be like, no way. But we've used it in productions with TriCasters where exactly as Mitchell just showed, where we use the NDI capture app and just do a quick cut in, like a cooking show, we were able to get an angle that you just couldn't get with the big camera. So it does come in handy. And just to follow up on the other previous question that was about how do you transfer files in the cloud, Andy Carluccio did pipe in chat and mention that there is an app. It's called Capture-Transfer to Google Drive and Dropbox. So those of you that are listening later on and not in the chat, there is an app. You look it up in the Zoom app marketplace, Capture-Transfer to Google Drive and Dropbox. So thanks, Andy, for that.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Guy, for bringing that in. Next question.
From Ronnie Hofsoy from Tromsø, Norway, is there a way to support office hours global financially?
There is. There is a website. If you go to officehours.global/donate, it gives you a little page that is powered by DonorBox. And what this allows you to do is choose either a one-time or a repeating donation of however much. I did this the other day. Run through DonorBox, so that handles the paperwork for you because Office Hours is a 501c3, so there's no goods or services exchange. This is considered a tax-deductible gift, which is nice if that's something that you're looking to do for your taxes, or if you're in that situation. But regardless, I did this the other week. It was really easy, and I looked at it this way. What value have I gleaned out of Office Hours, and how can I try and contribute some of that back? And so, whatever felt appropriate was good for me, and I felt good doing it. Guy?
Yeah, ramping up for NAB, I'm sure we're going to have some expenses. Being on the board for the nonprofit, I see the numbers, and it got scary in January. We were out of money. So just to be honest with you guys, yeah, those donations they're super important. They helped us be able to pay the insurance, which is a big. It's money. There's fees for AWS and insurance. So those of you that donated, totally appreciate it. Those of you that haven't, if you can, and you want a good show for NAB, some of that I'm sure will go to pay for an Airbnb or something for those of us that need to crash somewhere, have a place. So I think that's where some of the money might go. But Alex, I'm sure will chime in as to where that money is spent. But he's bought a lot of gear. I mean, the cameras, we're getting loans of some gear, but there's definitely expenses like those cables and things for the surround 5.1 mix. They're not cheap, so more money equals better show. So thanks all for donating.
And reminder, tomorrow is our introspection show. So if you'd like to ask more questions about how that works or what's going on with the donations and things like that, Sunday is a great place for that. In the meantime, one more time, that is officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Jeff Cohen, Miami Beach, Florida. I noticed everyone was using separate in-ear monitors with the Vision Pro in yesterday's after-hours test. Are the built-in audio pods leaking too much audio or just not able to get all the necessary audio feeds to them?
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit simpler. That a lot of us had a computer that we're on Zoom with so that we could show us taking on and off the headset and doing things without having to worry about the connection of the actual headset. the audio comes out of this little tiny channel here, and it's pretty close to your ear. I'm assuming that the microphone is more in the front, so I didn't notice any sort of echoing loop. So the only reason we had in-ear monitors during the test was we had both Zoom on our computer and Zoom on the headset. So we were in Zoom twice. So that's why we had in-ear monitors as well.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to ask for those of you that are poor enough to now have spent your money on them, does it allow for interfacing to external audio and video input besides the Zoom app itself that runs locally on the headset? Can you pipe high quality audio in and turn off the internal mics? Of course, the internal mics are pretty close to your mouth, so I imagine it must be pretty good. But let's say you want to feed the output of your ATEM switcher in instead of showing up as a funny avatar. Is that possible?
Well, as of right now, there's no
or audio over Bluetooth. Does it interface to audio over Bluetooth? Could you feed Bluetooth audio in?
You can do a Bluetooth. You can put in your AirPods to connect to it for audio. So I'm assuming it's going to use that for the output, or maybe the microphones. But we actually found it interesting when I first joined the Zoom yesterday as my ghost head avatar persona or whatever we're calling it. Most people said the audio sounded pretty good. I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't use the built-in speakers, kind of the open ear stuff, with a real microphone because there is some leaking. Like when my wife was wearing it yesterday and trying it out, I could tell what kind of video she was watching based on sound from being 5 feet away. So definitely couldn't use it with a high-quality microphone, but nor do I think you could get a high-quality microphone audio into the Vision unless you were somehow doing it over Bluetooth, but then we're probably overcomplicating things unnecessarily. Mitch?
CJ, +1 on that mic. I thought it sounded pretty darn good. So if the earphones can be up to the same task, I would say use them both. Looks like a lot of R&D went in there.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Chiefs won. Sorry, spoiler alert. So will Taylor Swift get to be part of the halftime show at the Super Bowl?
Go ahead, Mitch.
I was watching Bill Maher, and he said last night that she'll do it only if she gets to announce her favorite presidential candidate.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, the halftime show is a big moneymaker for someone who sponsors it, like Pepsi or who Apple, I think, is sponsoring it this time. So I doubt they will do that because a lot of contracts would have to be signed to have her appear there and knock whoever the star of the halftime show is out, to take away from that halftime show that's been rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, because it doesn't depend on who won the game. That halftime show has been in preparation for months.
And besides all of that, there is the fact that she is doing a show in Japan less than 48 hours prior to the Super Bowl, so there wouldn't quite be enough prep time to get her in there. But most likely, she's just going to want to watch the game and cheer on her boyfriend. So we're do
you watch those things?
She's got her own golf stream. Come on, she can do whatever she wants.
But do you watch those things? Do you know where Taylor Swift's going from?
I just saw a news article that said they were trying to get some clicks. So they were saying what's the likelihood of Taylor Swift being able to land in Las Vegas in time for the show? And then they were saying, well, the issue is not going to be whether or not she can get there in time. It's whether or not there's going to be runways. And then as I was reading, I said, what am I doing reading this? I'm going to move on. Anyway, next question.
Sorry. Chris Wider from Lafayette, Indiana. How do we watch the Sunday show nowadays?
It is not recorded to YouTube, but it is streamed over YouTube. So if you go to officehours.global/Sunday, you can get a link to the stream on Sunday mornings, and that is the easiest way to do it. And with that, the next time you will see us will be Sunday, because that's going to do it for another great Saturday. I just wanted to give a couple well, first of all, we've got our new panelist meeting that is happening in about 12 minutes here. So at the top of the hour, if you're interested in becoming a panelist, want to know what it takes, what are the steps that you need to take to contribute to the panel and join us and lend your wisdom to the group, we're always looking for new faces and new perspectives. So we'd love to have you. So that is the new panelist meeting. Look out for a link on Discord for that. Thank you to the panel for being here, and also thanks for hanging out yesterday, those of us who were in after hours yesterday checking out the Vision. It's great to be at the forefront of be at the edge of a new technology, but then to get a million different perspectives on, well, what if you could do this and what if you could do that? This group accelerates our learning, but it also accelerates our ability to answer all the questions. So couldn't do it without you. Thanks to the crew on the back end who's cutting the show, who's mixing the show, who's getting us in here, making sure that we look and sound good. We appreciate you guys every single morning. And also thank you to our audience and our producers who are submitting questions. If we didn't have your questions, it'd be a pretty short show. So we appreciate all you guys. On the Tlaloc Traversal today, we did 61,500 miles. That is 98.9 thousand kilometers, which is 487 million bananas for scale. All right, we'll see you in after hours.
See you in the virtual side.
I will see you as a spooky floating head.
I want to see that spooky ghost dad again.
Craig, what's the OH test lab?
I think that's what we call the what used to be the practice one that was on Tuesday or Wednesdays. I think it's.
Oh, is that Wednesday?
I think it's this coming Wednesday.
Yeah, because it's monthly now and not because it's monthly and not weekly. It's a whole 2 hours and it's a little more in depth. I had a lot of fun there.
Right. So it follows the new panelist. So we have the new panelist meeting on Saturday, and then we do the test lab the following Wednesday.
Cool.
Well, you just plugged it.
There we go.
Yeah.